Hello learners, today we will be discussing about classification of igneous rocks. Here is an outline of the talk. We will have a brief introduction about classification of igneous rocks. This will be followed by a simplified classification which can be used in the field, which we call as field classification. This will be followed by classification based on mineralogical composition, which is further subdivided into 5 types of classification. One that is based on composition and proportion of minerals. Then we have classification based on color index. Then we have CIPW classification, tabular classification, IUGS classification, and this will be followed by a summary. As we all know that igneous rocks are known to exhibit great variability in chemical and mineralogical compositions, and it also shows textural variations. To reduce the complexity arising from these variations in composition and textures, we need to classify igneous rocks. As you can clearly see below, there are 3 hand specimens of rock types. We have a gabbro, which is consisting of dark colored minerals. Then we have a apatite, which is mostly showing pink colored phenocrysts of potash feldspar. And then we have a granite, which also is exhibiting phenocrysts of potash feldspar, which is pink in color, as well as phenocrysts of plagioclase feldspar, which is white in color. This variation in color from the dark colored minerals to the light colored minerals is arising out of the different minerals which constitute these rocks and is giving this variation in colors. Here we have the field classification. Field classification, as we know that when we go to field, we do not have access to many mineralogical instruments which can provide us with quantitative data. Here, most of the classification is based on what we have seen in textures. Textures can be of various types, that we can have grain size variations which will be of coarse, fine, vesicular, and they may be glassy as well. And also we can look at the color of the rocks which is there in the minerals, which is arising out of the minerals which are there in the rock. For instance, in the felsic rocks, we will have light colored minerals. For intermediate rocks, we will have moderately light colored minerals and a mix of dark colored minerals. And for the mafic rocks, we will be seeing dark colored minerals. Even though the color is not a robust method of classifying igneous rocks, but in cases of vesicular or glassy materials such as obsidian, where we cannot observe any crystals or growth of any crystals in those rocks, we tend to classify them based on its color. Felsic minerals are quartz, potash feldspar, and sodic plagioclase, which gives the light color. And for intermediate rocks, we have sodic and calcic plagioclase, which gives it a mixed color of dark and bright. And for dark colored minerals, for mafic rocks, we have calcic plagioclases and pyroxene. And based on the variety of texture, whether it is a coarse grain felsic rock, it will be a granite. If we have a fine grain felsic rock, we tend to call it as rhyolite. Likewise, for intermediate coarse grain rock will be a diorite, and fine grain intermediate rock will be an andesite. For mafic rocks also, we have coarse grain variety will be a gabbro, and the finer variety will be a basalt. For ultramafic rocks, most of the minerals which constitute it are pyroxenes and olivines, and generally we use a clubbed term called as peridotite to classify all the ultramafic rocks which we generally tend to see in the field. Moving on to the classification based on mineralogical composition. Classification based on composition and proportion of minerals is the first type of classification under this. Here we have primary minerals. Primary minerals are those minerals which has formed during the cooling and crystallization of magma. They are further can be subdivided into essential minerals and accessory minerals. Essential minerals, these are those minerals whose presence is necessary and is considered essential for naming a rock. For instance, if I have a peridotite, I should definitely have pyroxene and olivine in there to call it as a peridotite. So likewise, for accessory minerals, these are minerals whose presence is not necessary to name the rock, and they are present in minor amount than that of the essential minerals. Here is an example to show you what is an essential mineral, what are actually essential minerals. We have, for instance, this is a granite hand specimen which is being shown, where the essential minerals will be quartz, plagioclase feldspar, and potash feldspar. Under the microscope, the potash feldspar will be one which is showing the cross-hatch twinning. You can see subhedral grains of quartz as well as plagioclase. Here is an example how we can use even accessory minerals to name the rock at times. For instance, this is a tourmaline bearing granite. You can see the black colored minerals in here, and the rock specimen are tourmaline. Tourmaline can be fixed with the granite term, and it can be termed as a tourmaline bearing granite depending on the accessory mineral tourmaline which is present in this rock. Then we have the secondary minerals. These are the minerals which form by the alteration of primary minerals which may be of primary or secondary origin. Primary alteration. The primary alteration refers to the alteration of primary minerals by water vapors at the time or after the cooling and crystallization of magma. And secondary alteration, it is that process which arises out of weathering and alteration of the already crystallized rock. Common examples are feldspar altering to sericite, and there are also examples of biotite altering to chlorite. These are alterations, and these are the secondary minerals which we generally tend to see. There can be also classification based on commonly occurring minerals in a rock. Based on this, the igneous rocks are classified into felsic rocks and mafic rocks. Felsic rocks, common examples of felsic rocks are granite and rhyolite. Felsic minerals include quartz, feldspar, feldspathoid, muscovite, etc. And it comprises of minerals that have a lighter shade of color. Mafic rocks, common examples which we see are basalt and gabbros. Mafic minerals which are present are pyroxene, olivine, amphibole, biotite, iron oxide, etc. And these minerals tend to have dark color. So felsic rocks are usually lighter colored and mafic rocks are usually dark in color. So this is an example of a rhyolite which is a felsic volcanic rock which is showing lighter shade of color, and then we have a mafic rock which is a basalt. As you can see, it is very dark in color, almost black. Then we also have a classification based on color index of minerals. We have leucochaetic minerals, which are those minerals which are light in color, and they dominantly are composed of light colored minerals and are poor in dark colored minerals. These rocks have less than 0.33% of dark colored minerals. We have mesocratic rocks. These rocks have dark colored minerals which vary between 33 to 67 volume % of the rock, and they have an intermediate color. Then we have the melanocratic rocks which are dark colored, and this dark color is arising out of the presence of dark colored minerals in these rocks, which is usually more than 67% in the rock. So here is a classification showing you the color index. First we have an applied sample which is leucochaetic, then we have a rhyolite sample which is mesocratic. As you can see, it is showing both a mix of white and dark colored minerals, and then we have the melanocratic gabbro which is all consisting of dark colored minerals. Then we move on to the CIPW classification. This classification is based on norm calculation from bulk rock chemical composition. This is a quasi-chemical method of classifying rocks. Hence also this is referred to as norm classification. It is a means of converting the chemical composition of an igneous rock to an ideal mineral composition, and this was proposed by 4 American petrologists in 1931, Cross, Eddings, Pearson and Washington, and the first letters of their name has been used to classify this, and that's why we call this as CIPW classification. Basic principle of CIPW classification is to understand the relationship between major element chemistry and a possible mineralogical composition of the rock which we are interested in. The term norm is usually used for a series of arbitrarily selected minerals formed from a chemical composition of a rock. A series of standard norms are usually followed for formulation of the minerals according to the Bowen's reaction series to calculate the norm. It is worth mentioning that this is a theoretical approach and the norms calculated may or may not tally with the mode, that is actual composition of the rock. Norm usually is divided into two groups. We have the sialic and the sialic minerals, and then we have the phamic minerals. Sialic minerals are those which are rich in silica and aluminium, and the phamic are those which are rich in iron and magnesium. Here you can see a list of sialic minerals which are rich in silicon and aluminium. Listed are the minerals and their chemical composition. You can see quartz, which is silica rich. Then we have corundum, which is totally Al2O3. Then all other minerals, orthoclase, albite, anorthite, leucite, nepheline, calcilite. These all minerals, as you can see from their chemical formula, has a major proportion of silicon and aluminium in their chemical composition. Likewise, for the phamic minerals, these are rich in iron and magnesium. From the mineral compositions, you can clearly see that these are rocks which are having magnesium and iron in their chemical formula. For instance, you have diopside, which is CaO, MgFe, SiO2. So from the mineral formula, you can clearly see the iron and magnesium in their composition. The norm classification system has been in use for several years and has been revised number of times. Earlier, the norm calculations were carried out manually and it was considered to be a tedious task. Right now, norm calculations are computed using computer codes. There are few advantages and disadvantages of the CIPW classification. The advantage includes that this can be applied to fine-grained and grassy rocks, and those rocks can also be classified using norm. CIPW norm calculations can also be done for the altered igneous and metamorphic rocks, and they can provide us a clue about their original rock type. Amongst the disadvantages, this classification scheme requires chemical composition prior to doing this classification. Chemical composition must be known for doing this. Calculated norms also may match or may not match with the actual mineralogy which we see in our thin section observations. Then there is another classification based on the mineral compositions, that is the tabular classification. This classification considers both silica content and relative proportion of feldspars, that is alkali and plagioclase feldspar. It also considers the mode of occurrence, SiO2 percentage and the amount of free quartz present, and the proportion of potash feldspar, lime, that is the calcic plagioclase, and the sodic plagioclase. Based on this, there has been three categories into which this is classified into. We have the oversaturated, saturated, and undersaturated rocks. These are further subdivided into oversaturated, group 1 and 2, saturated into group 3, and undersaturated into group 4, 5, and 6, as we will be seeing in the next slide, which is showing you the tabular classification. You can see that there are different columns which are being shown in this table. We have the tabular classification. First, we have the plutonic, hyperbasal, and volcanic. These are the different modes of occurrence of igneous rock. Plutonic rocks, those which are crystallizes at a shallower depth. Hyperbasal, a relatively shallower depth, and volcanic ones are the ones which are erupted on the surface of the earth. Plutonic rocks are further subdivided into felsic and mafic, that is based on the proportion of minerals, which is light colored minerals and dark colored minerals in mafic. This is further, then you can see the oversaturated, saturated, and the undersaturated column, where you can see group 1 is having quartz, group 2 is having quartz plus feldspar, which is further subdivided into two groups, one which is predominating in orthoclase feldspar, the other group which is predominating in plagioclase feldspar. And this is resulting in two different types of rocks. If we have proportion of orthoclase feldspar more in group 2 along with quartz, then we call that rock as a granite. Likewise, if we have predominance of plagioclase feldspar along with quartz in group 2, we will call that plutonic rock to be granodiorite. Likewise, for the saturated rocks, we have feldspar present, Predominance of alkali feldspar in the rock will form a cyanide. Predominance of sodium and calcic plagioclase will form a diorite. Likewise, predominance of calcium and sodium plagioclase will form an anorthosite as a felsic rock, and its mafic equivalent is the gabbro. Likewise, we have also undersaturated rocks. We have group 4, which is consisting of feldspars and feldspathoids, which are silica undersaturated minerals. Then we have group 5, the feldspathoids only, and then we have group 6, which is mafic minerals dominated by mafic minerals. Likewise, for the felsics, we will have nepheline cyanide, and for this we have, for the group 5 feldspathoid predominated, we have isolite, and then for group 6, where mafic minerals are also in there, we call those as peridotite picrite. And different proportions of different hyperbasal rocks are also has been shown by these lines. You can see that the aplites can be having a composition from group 2 till group 4. And likewise, for the volcanic equivalents, we have rhyolite, dacite, trachyte, and andesite. For various groups, we have silica saturated andesite. And like if we have volcanic glasses, that will have a composition ranging from group 2 to group 3, and we will have peach stone or obsidian. Moving on to the most widely accepted classification of igneous rocks, that is the IUGS classification. IUGS stands for the International Union of Geological Sciences. IUGS established a subcommission for classifying plutonic rocks. This classification was recommended by IUGS in 1973, which was further elaborated by Liebas and Straxen in 1991. This classification has been able to bring uniformity and rationality in the field of classification of igneous rocks. Here, the rocks are classified and named based on their actual mineral contents measured in volume percent, that is their quantitative model composition. Model composition is usually determined from a number of thin sections of the same rock by point counting on a grid pattern. For this, we take thin sections, we make grid patterns on those thin sections, and we calculate the volume proportion of different minerals present in them by manual point counting or by automatic point counting, and that is what we call as the model composition of the rock. This classification is strictly a quantitative mineralogical classification. To classify the rock in a correct manner, we need to have the model proportion of minerals, and the percentages of 5 minerals must be determined. That is Q, A, P, F, and M. Here, the Q stands for quartz and the polymorphs of silica. Say, for instance, cristobalite, stishovite, these are polymorphs of silica. Then we can have A, alkali feldspar, which includes albite, that is NaAlSi3O8. Then we have plagioclase feldspars, which are more calcic, like anorthite, CaAl2Si3O8. Then we have feldspathoids, feldspathoid minerals such as nepheline. And then the M, which is all other phases, which are the mafic minerals. Here is a diagram of the IUGS classification. This IUGS classification, as has been already mentioned, is a quantitative mineralogical composition which is plotted on a QAPF double triangle joined at AP base for classification purpose. So this is Q, this is A and the P triangle, and this is where we have A, P and F triangle, and this is the AP joint where this is joined together. This is the double triangle which we are talking about. So this is Q stands for quartz, P stands for plagioclase feldspar, A stands for alkali feldspars, and we have F stands for the foids. Foids are this triangle FAP is for silica undersaturated rocks, and this QAP triangle is for silica saturated rocks. Here you can see that if you have proportion of very high proportion of quartz, you have quartzolite. Likewise, if you have very high proportion of plagioclase feldspar, you will be forming rocks such as diorite, gabbro, and anorthosite. Likewise, if you have more proportion of alkali feldspar, you will have alkali feldspar cyanide. So these lines which are dividing these fields, this is basically to show the field in which alkali feldspar cyanides will be forming. So this is the field for quartz cyanide. Likewise, we have field for the granite and the granodiorite as well. Composition is usually recalculated on the percentage basis and projected on the QAPF plane so that the Q plus A plus P is 100 or F plus A plus P is 100. We know that the mineralogy of a rock reflects its chemical composition because a rock is consisting of different minerals and these minerals are chemical constituents of a rock. Rocks with free quartz are rich in silica, could be granite. Likewise, rocks with plagioclase dominant feldspar are high in calcium and they can be gabbro or diorite. And those rocks which are dominated by mafic minerals contain considerable magnesium and iron and they may be called as peridotite or dunite, etc. Dunite is a monomineralic olivine bearing rock which is olivine composition is MgFe2SiO4. So you can clearly see from this example that what is the proportion of magnesium and iron in such kind of a chemical composition. IUGS classification distinguishes rocks based on the grain size. For instance, plutonic rocks are coarse grain and volcanic rocks are fine grain. Plutonic rocks are coarse grain because they are erupted at a certain depth within the Earth's crust and as a result they have sufficient time for growth of its crystal. For the volcanic rocks, as they are erupted on the surface of the earth and they immediately quench, there is not much time left for the grain growth and as a result those rocks exhibit fine mineral grains. Rocks with less than 90% mafic minerals are classified based on their light colored constituents such as quartz, plagioclase, alkali feldspar. Alkali feldspar may consist of orthoclase, microcline and feldspathoid minerals and plagioclase feldspar will be albite. Rocks with 90 to 100% mafic minerals are usually called as ultramafic and are classified based on the relative proportion of mafic minerals. A number of plutonic igneous rocks are low in silica and contain feldspathoid foids rather than quartz. For such rocks, the second triangle, as has been mentioned, the FAP triangle will be used. A rock cannot appear in both the triangles, that is the QAP, because quartz and feldspathoids are chemically incompatible. When mixed, they will react to form feldspar of intermediate silica content. How do we determine the percentages of quartz, alkali feldspar and plagioclase feldspar in a rock? Here I have shown you the mineral formulas, how it is considered. Mafic minerals are considered to be constituting 50% of the rock and rest quartz, alkali feldspar and plagioclase feldspar constitute the rest of the 50%. And you can calculate it and normalize it to 100%, which will give us the values which we can plot and find out where our composition is falling, and this will allow us to classify the rock using the QAPF diagram. So here is an example how we do this. We have the Q over here and A over here and P over here. Plagioclase is 100% here, alkali feldspars are 100% over here, and we have quartz 100% over here. The alkali feldspar proportion will increase from the QAP plane towards A. The quartz proportion will increase from AP plane towards Q, and plagioclase feldspar composition will increase from AQ plane towards P. By finding out the values of QAP and normalizing it to 100, we can plot the composition of our rock concerned in this triangle and can classify our rocks. There are certain drawbacks of the IUGS classification. Rock texture is not reflected in this classification except for making distinction between the finer and the coarser rock types. Rocks such as serpentine and kimberlite also do not fit into the IUGS classification scheme. So here is the brief summary of the talk which we have just now heard. We have the field blaze classification. Based on texture, we can classify a rock to be phaneritic, aphanitic, vesicular, glassy or fragmental. Mineralogy wise, it can have quartz, K-feldspar in granite, for instance. Based on color, we can have felsic and mafic rocks. And based on mineralogical composition, we have composition and proportion of minerals, color index, CIPW, tabular, and IUGS classification. Based on composition of and proportion of minerals, we can classify them as primary minerals, which can further be classified into essential and accessory categories. Secondary minerals, which also can be further classified into primary and secondary alterations. Based on color index, we have leucocratic rocks, melanocratic rocks, and mesocratic rocks. CIPW norm allows us to find out the minerals which are either falling in the sialic or the phamic group. Tabular classification is more based on the silica saturation. We have oversaturated, silica oversaturated, silica saturated, and silica undersaturated variety. Then we have the IUGS classification, which is based on the composition of the rock, and we can calculate the Q, A, and P proportion of minerals in the rock and plot it on the diagram of QAPF and classify the rocks. Thank you.